Well, hello there. I'm Miriam Siegel, in case you don't know that. And I work in some sort of therapeutic or advisory capacity, or at least I have been doing as a coach, a therapist, counselor, teacher for about 40 years. I'm always looking for ways to help my clients get more out of their sessions and also to teach coaches and therapists and counselors and other human services practitioners to help their clients get more out of their sessions. What I've noticed is that people often come to me with the impression that they're weak or helpless or powerless in some way, and they don't want to be that way. And they don't even necessarily want to admit that they feel like that. They don't want to be that way, but they don't necessarily know how to be different. Or they think they might know how, but then they don't do what they know, or they can't seem to get it to work. So does that sound like you? It sounds like me sometimes. I'm going to start by telling you a story, and some of you may have read this story on Facebook already. For those of you who have, bear with me, and for those of you who haven't, here it comes. I slept with a German boy. This is a while ago, and it might not sound like a very big deal, and just to make it clear, I slept with him. That's the operative word. What had happened was we were living with 6 other people in a 2-bedroom flat, and I had been sleeping on the couch in the living room, and he had been sleeping on the floor, if I recall correctly, in the kitchen, I think. But anyway, for a long time, neither of us really slept because we were where everybody else was. Then a couple moved out, and we were next up to be able to move into the bedroom where they were staying. Remember, this is a 2-bedroom flat. So we needed to have a talk, and we knew we needed to have a talk because I was older than him. I wasn't romantically interested in him. I am born to Jewish parents, which basically means I'm Jewish, and he was a German boy. So we sat down one afternoon in the living room when we were both home alone and had the talk. And it turns out he felt the same way as me. It's like, well, okay, I have no animosity or blame or anything like that. And I'm not looking for any sort of romantic involvement. It's just we're sharing a room and there's one bed. So we agreed that this was going to work. And we folded our sheets so that he was in his own little sheet and I was in my own little sheet. And so it was kind of like we were in our own sleeping bags. And we stayed there and it went fine. And then one of the nights later, the rest of the gang was gathered in the living room and they were having a very nice time. And he and I went to bed because we both had to get up early for work the next day. And so I just made a joke. We'd been staying there for a while, and I just made a joke that why don't we pretend that we're, having, just for fun, just to fool them. And he thought that was a great idea. So we just started making a lot of noise, and we were really joking around. I mean, it didn't sound real at all, but it went dead quiet in the living room, dead quiet, and it never actually. It didn't sound like anybody was talking at all. And then we fell asleep. And when I got up in the morning, nobody would look me in the eye and nobody spoke to me. And I went off to work. And when I came home, it was exactly the same. So when we were all together again in the evening, he and I told them that it was a joke. We had just been kidding around. We had just decided to do this. And nobody believed us, or at least they didn't believe me. They considered me to be the grown up of the two of us, the responsible adult, and I had taken advantage of this young person. And so they treated me quite differently afterwards, to put it that way. I was shunned to a certain degree. They looked at me with glares and sort of shaming looks and that sort of thing. I should know better. I was concerned about how he felt about the whole thing, and he was fine. I was fine, because I knew what the truth was and I could stand in my integrity. So I stayed living there with him and with these other people. And I was fine. My life was great. I did my job. And they were allowed to keep their assumptions and judgments and interpretations, seemingly not interested in what the truth was. So, why am I telling this story? Because I wanted to share with you that I could have gone into an idea about being powerless and helpless at their mercy, but I didn't. I stayed in my sovereignty, my power, my integrity. And no matter how they looked at me, and no matter what they said about me, and no matter how they treated me, I felt just fine and I felt safe and free. So, what I'm going to say now may sound simple. I'm not making light of the situation if you feel like you've been in situations like that where people look at you differently, or you feel helpless and weak and powerless, and you don't necessarily know what to do, or you don't know how to make what you do know work. So I'm not making light of the situation. I have some steps that you may find useful. The first one is pay attention. Pay attention. Where is your attention going? Because very often when we start feeling powerless and helpless and weak, we're focusing way more on everybody else, and we're losing sight of ourselves. We're losing sight of who we are and what our truth is. We're not in our integrity. We're not in our autonomy. So it's not just about attention either and where we're putting our attention. It's about having laser focus. And that's the next point. What's your trajectory and what's your destination? If you don't know where you're going and how you're going to get there, it's very easy to lose focus and then focus on what everybody else thinks and says and shoulds, as they tell you what they think you should do. So you need to develop laser focus so you don't get thrown off kilter when other people show up and maybe try to throw you off kilter. And the other thing is, when you know where you're going and you know how to get there, or at least you've got a plan as to how to get there, you need to have a commitment. And this is something that can be trained. All of this is to be trained. You train to have laser focus and stay committed. And if you fall off your path, you learn to be able to get back on your path with resilience as quickly as possible. And again, re-establishing your power and your commitment. The next step is, or another step, is to get real. It's not about their assumptions and their judgments and their interpretations or your expectations. Expectations are not real, they're illusions. And it's not about what was, and it's not about what might be. It's about what is, and sticking to the plan. So when you're worried, when you feel influenced by what was or what might be, the question you can ask yourself is, how do I know? If you're worried about something and you're taking action to avoid consequences that may not even happen, ask yourself, how do I know this is even going to happen? How do I know what other people are thinking? How do I know? So get real with yourself and how you may be fooling yourself. And then, this is the biggest muscle of all. Build your undefiability. Become invincible. You cannot be defied. Make that muscle stronger and stronger so that you can stand in practically any storm and not get blown over by it and taken over. So, do you have a leader in you? Do you want to be that leader? And when I say leader, I'm not talking about running huge companies if that's not what you're planning to do or what you want to do, even. I'm talking about being the boss of your own life, being the leader in your own life. I'm inviting you to awaken your leader, to embody your leader, and to lead your life. Over the next 7 to 10 days, I'm looking to work with 5 clients to teach you excellence level life skills in 12 weeks so that you will have the tools to be able to stand in your power and live from your sovereignty. What do I mean by sovereignty? I mean from your power, having the freedom to live and act from your own autonomy, with your own choices, and free from external control. Doesn't that sound great? Is this something for you? If it sounds like it is, if you'd like to work with me or you'd like to know more, write power in the comments or send me a private DM and I'll get in touch with you for a chat. So write power in the comments or send me a DM and I will get in touch with you for a chat.